Hey, awesome. Okay, so this is our first study group for the new book. I'm super excited about it. I think to ask kind of with like a show of hands or something like who has started reading. Like, I know there's probably some people that maybe haven't read all of it or haven't, but yeah, a few of us have read. Good. Okay, awesome. So we welcome lots of participation. We're kind of going to just go through. First, we'll go through the Habits of Health book, and then second, we'll go through the LifeBook. And what we first, and the first section that we were studying in the Habits of Health book is the introduction and the first. Let's see, where's the beginning of this, part 1.1, it's not your fault that you're struggling. So I'd like to kind of open it up and ask like what kind of takeaways you guys had. What were the highlights, for you, something that you enjoyed, and then, go from there. One comment I'll say while you guys are kind of remembering what stood out to you, is that I remember when I first read The Habits of Health, the first book, that I don't know if I really had expectations. Like I didn't know what I was opening up to read necessarily, but I remember reading the parts about like it's not your fault, like that kind of a thing, and talking about all of the culture and the kind of the situation that we're in and the fast food and just, everybody's in a hurry and all of those types of things, that it kind of made sense and helped me to let go of some of the shame that I felt for being overweight. And so I think it's a good, like a critical part to begin with. And so as I'm reading this the second time, I'm trying to think of how it would be as somebody reading it for the first time, like somebody who's starting program, right? And so that was just one thing that I remembered, and it kind of stood out to me from this. But what about you guys? What was something in either the introduction or that first section that you guys liked? Sorry, my kids are banging on my door, so they're up. That's okay. Jessica or Jennifer, did you guys have anything that you wanted to share?
I still am in the middle of 1.1. I still haven't finished it all. But no, I mean, just like what you said, I really enjoyed, the idea that, our bodies are designed perfectly to take care of themselves and to do what needs to do to survive. And our culture has kind of messed us all up just in the last couple of years. And just, reading about the, our circadian rhythm, especially with sleep, and, the way that everything's automatic, and then the food culture kind of has hijacked us. Just the two comparisons. It's really fun to read those. And there's an analogy, something about a polar bear placed in the desert. I'm not sure where that was, but that was kind of a fun little thing to think about, how we're kind of, we're designed and we're made perfectly. There's nothing wrong with us. We're just placed in this crazy lifestyle that we got to figure out.
Awesome, Jen. Hey, a couple thoughts that are going to stray from the book just a little bit, but not really. How they say it's not our fault. Have any of you guys read the book Wheat Belly?
I've heard of it.
It's amazing. I only listened to it on CD. It's like a 4-hour CD, but I can't remember the author, but it's called Wheat Belly. And basically, the reason it's not our fault is because food is not what it was 100 years ago. 80% of what's on the grocery store shelves at this time did not exist 100 years ago. Therefore, it's not really truly food. It's chemicals. And what they've done with wheat over, the course of the last several years is they've genetically modified it. So instead of it taking, here to get it to sprout here, it withstands drought, storm, like all the elements. Weed killer won't even kill it. So it's just so hardy, and it gets into all the systems in our body. And I know for me personally, the greatest side effect of wheat is mental wellness. And they did a study on like a psych ward where with the patients, they let wheat be in their diet for like 8 weeks, and then they took it out for 8 weeks, and all the patients improved. So that's just to show you how different food is than it was 100 years ago. 100 years ago, you see a picture of a couple, the man's thin, the wife's thin, the wife's not running 5 miles a day trying to keep her figure. Her exercise is her housework, and her husband's out working in the field. So it just shows you what we're putting in our mouth just is affecting our body so much differently. But I would highly recommend Wheat Belly. It's unbelievable what wheat does to every system in our body. But yeah, so that's kind of veering off, but kind of not. It's like, that's why we are where we are today.
Right. Yeah. With the food. And I like how Dr. A talks about that. He talks about how, things are so different than 100 years ago, like you were talking about, or more, and I mean, he talks about also with sleep, like people used to kind of wake up with the sun. They would kind of, wind down after, when the sun wound down with, maybe over a campfire but it was just kind of low light. And then for a little bit to kind of gather socially. And then, then they would go to sleep. So it was kind of just this more like less distractions, or, I mean, now we've got all the bright lights, and I mean, we could stay up all night have everything well lit. And so it is different for our sleep. It's different with our food. Stress is different too. And then he talks about how, the stress response in our body, like how, what does he say? He says 10,000 years ago, people had imminent danger that was like a really real thing, regularly. And so, we had to, we had the hormones in our body that helped us to, run away from danger. And now we have like perceived dangers that are very different, and but we have the same response. And I like how we do talk about with OptiV, it doesn't go into it in this chapter very much, but like we can understand that, and the parts of our brain, and we can understand like any type of discomfort is going to have the same response as if we were being attacked, by a bear or something. It's going to have that same type of response. And so that's why if we're trying anything new or different, if we're doing something different than other people, like it's going to have somewhat of that same response and feel uncomfortable. And to know that and recognize that helps us to be able to move past it and still do the new thing anyway that's improving our life,
He talks about how we have that stress response is where we get the chemicals in our bodies are like swirling through our body. So the fight is there, like that fight, the tenseness, but then the flight is we don't run from it, because that is how that chemical would have been dispersed in through our body, is because we, that chemical response happens in our systems, but they would have run from the bear. So those chemicals would have kind of been dispersed, washed out. I'm not sure exactly how that works, but we don't do that. It just stays in our body, and we're just sitting there, and so that's actually why exercise is a stress reliever, because that's the flight. That's the flight response. So it's interesting that a lot of times I'm probably top on the list. You know, how many times do I get stressed out and be like, you know what, I need to go for a walk or a run or go exercise. I don't do that. I just try and you know, be angry about it, or, you know, I'm stressed out, or, you know, and so that's an interesting concept there, is that's one of, we aren't dealing with our stresses the same way. But then he also talked about the oh shoot, when you were talking about the food, I'll look for it because I wrote some notes, so I'll look for where I was. So go forward.
Okay. One quote I liked was from page 44, and it said, "You don't have a willpower problem or a negative thinking problem." How many times are we like, why can't I do this? Like, I just, you know, need to be more positive. I just need to try harder, and, you know, like those types of things. But he says, you have a simple conflict between two real desires: the desire to achieve your health goals and the desire to satisfy your instincts. And when you kind of think of it like that, you're like, okay, there's some instinctual stuff going on, you know, and that's what we were talking about with our brain and things. And then we have some health goals, which will put us in a new set of behaviors. So, you know, it's going to struggle against those instincts. And, you know, like that she was, Karen was saying, the fight or flight or those types of things. So, so I like that he, you know, tells us in here. I mean, this is just the first part. So he's like, in this book, we're going to, you know, show you a simple way to be able to harmonize with the two areas. Yeah, but yeah, the gist of this is like, with our environment of food being changed to what it, you know, something different than what it was, you know, back in the day, you know, our stress, you know, being high and not having that outlet, you know, and then also, you know, our sleep being out of whack also, like those types of things. And fast food being horrible for us and so convenient and made to get us addicted with adding sugar to everything. You know, that it's a difficult environment, and that's kind of created an unhealthy situation for a lot of Americans. And so, you know, this is the answer. This is the guide. This is what's going to help us to learn how to, you know, reach our health goals in the world that we live in, and what kinds of things we need to change and do differently. One of the things he talks about too, I liked, is family dinners. I kind of like that because, you know, we try to have family dinners. So I was like, okay, good. Like, that's a good thing. But I mean, it just was talking about, you know, research shows that children who have regular meals with their parents, you know, do better. And it said with their grades, healthier relationships, staying out of trouble, but also, you know, lowering childhood obesity when you're, you know, eating dinner together as a family. So having regular family dinners and having enough sleep, not watching too much TV. I don't know. It was a bunch of stuff that he was talking about, but it was good for me for us to think about our children too, because obviously we care about our own health, but we really want this to affect our families and help our families too.
And I think that that was the part that I was trying to find. You brought it up, so I just wanted to say that I figured that out. The conflict that we have is our desire to achieve our health goals versus the desire to satisfy those 10,000-year-old instincts. So that for sure was, I was trying to find it as I was flipping through, but I found that. So good.
Yay! Awesome.
I also, right underneath or on that same page, you were just talking about the family dinners.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was interesting because I put the note that the 3 leading causes of death, smoking is number 1. I was like, oh, good. I'm good with that. I don't smoke. But you know, second 2 were overeating and lack of exercise. And I went, okay, yes, those are definitely things that I can always be working on. And then it talked about how the all the things that happen to us with fast food. And I was like, oh man, I need to work on that too, a little bit better, and go, you know what? We shouldn't have fast food as often as we do, for sure. even though I do try to choose healthier options while I'm there. But most of the time, my kids are not when we go to a fast food place. I don't know about you.
Mm-hmm. Did you guys catch on page 45, the sugar is not evil? I thought this was so fascinating. It says that we're born with a preference for sweet, and our taste buds prefer sugar because we can safely digest it, and it supports our body functions. Breast milk is sweet because we need a concentrated fuel to develop our bodies and grow our brains. Our brains connect sugar with pleasure because the relationship has allowed us to survive. That's so fascinating.
Yeah, I liked reading that too. At the same time, he was saying normally people had like 1 tablespoon of sugar a day, and now it's like 200 and something a day. Like, you know what I mean? But I do like that. It makes me kind of think too, like, yeah, you're right. Like, sugar is not evil. And the reason we associate sugar with pleasure is like a natural thing, like that we associate it.
Mm-hmm.
But also it makes me kind of say, wow, like what a world we live in, that we have to seek for pleasure so much with something fast and convenient. Like, you know what I mean? Like more than people had to do before. And I think that just goes with the fast-paced life and the stressful life. Like, it's really like all this advancement in technology and advancement, right, of everything is playing a toll, whether we realize it or not, because even subconsciously we're like, and that's true too, when you're nursing a baby, if they're stressed out, if they're crying, sometimes they're hungry. A lot of times they're hungry, right, when they want to nurse. But sometimes they want to nurse for comfort. They want to nurse. And so I kind of feel like it's like with us, with sugar, it's like we want that comfort. But the fact that we want it so much is like, maybe we do need to take a look at our lifestyle, right? Oh, go figure. We need a healthy lifestyle, which is exactly the whole point of Dr. A's Habits of Health book and our Optavia program. And so I hope people get that when they read this, because a lot of times people go into it thinking it's a diet, right? Mm-hmm. Like just focused on the weight loss and the diet. And hopefully we've been able to talk with them with their health assessment about their why, and trying to help them see a bigger picture. But yeah, I hope, and I think it will. I think this book does bring that out. Like, it's our whole lifestyle that, it's not just one thing. It's not because you like cookies too much, like it's a whole lifestyle change that we want to, do in order to have it be, holistically successful for our whole bodies, and, have all these things working together for us. So was there anything else that anybody wanted to say about that before we move on to the LifeBook? I had those charts where it was saying where we were going with like the current and projected health path. And like, according to the forecasted path, most of us will be getting sicker, younger, and dying sooner unless we adopt a new path. So, and then he talked about how if we just do it kind of traditionally with diet or things like that, like it can actually like make it easier for us to gain weight back. Like it messes with our metabolism, it messes with stuff in our bodies. And so there is no magic pill that's going to be like healthy for us, the way is with diet and exercise. But if we just use exercise, on the other hand, you'd have to exercise, I think 90 minutes a day or something, like strenuously, in order to lose some weight, and so that's why this is a good balance, because it has a healthy way of giving us that nutrition, in changing what we're eating, and then also adding in that movement too, but without it being crazy stressful to, a lot of time.
It stood out to me that he said typically diets fail because they lack one or more of the following: a sound strategy, a clear process, skills required, understanding, support, and a proper environment. So that definitely is like part of the whole Optavia system, is that we are incorporating all of those things. I personally really related to that because I've tried other things, And I mean, I lost probably 70 pounds several years ago, but I gained it all back because I didn't learn the process. I didn't learn healthy habits. I just focused on a diet that I could, if I follow this, I'm going to lose weight. And that's exactly what I did. But then I was like, okay, I lost my weight. I don't have to worry about that anymore. And obviously that's not, it didn't work. And I realized that. So this is really, for me, the very first program that I have made the mental changes necessary to keep it off. I'm actually celebrating my health anniversary this month.
Yay, that's awesome. Congrats.
Thank you.
All right, shall we start discussing your life book?
Yes.
That's what it's called, your life book.
Yeah.
So for this, we were going to be reading the
basically introduction.
Yeah, pretty much the introduction up to page 35. And I confess, I didn't get through it all. And I feel like, I really want to make a concerted effort next week, really working on this, because in all the sections, it advises us to take a week to ponder and answer the questions and do each section of your life book. And so I kind of want to give it what it's due, and so, so it was a reminder to me to be like, okay, I got to start reading earlier in the week rather than putting it off to the last couple of days before we discuss. But, at any rate that you are reading, it's just good that we're reading and pondering and answering these questions. But Karen, why don't you walk us through and kind of share with us about the life book?
Okay, so in the first little part of this, he's talking, basically this whole introduction is kind of like reviewing your current reality. And he starts off with a story that he's retelling about a teacher and a mason jar. Just as for with a show of hands, how many people had a chance to read that little section? Rocks, pebbles, and sand. Okay, so Jennifer did. Okay, so just we'll just go over that really quick. So he takes a mason jar and he fills it with rocks, and he asks the classes if it's full, and they said yes. Well, then he takes some smaller pebbles and he pours those in, shakes them between all the rocks, and then he asks if the jar is full, and they said yes again. But then he takes sand and he pours it in there and fills in the rest of the holes, and he's like, okay, is it full now? And the students are like, yep, it's full. But then he takes water and he pours that in and he fills it to the top. And he gives the analogy that this is like our life. The rocks are the big things in your life, and like your family, your partner, your health, your hopes and your dreams. The pebbles are littler things like your friendships, your jobs, your hobbies. And the sand and the water are the rest of the small things that we have to do in our lives that fill in our time. And so basically it was a demonstration of what's the most important things that you really want to do, and getting those rocks into that into your mason jar first before you fill it with water. Because if you filled it with water and sand first, you're not going to have any time for anything else. So basically, in regards to our health, if we are looking at what are the most important things that we would like to do, and getting those things done first and making them a priority first in our lives, then we can fill in the rest of our time with the rest of the things that we want. And then of course he goes a little bit over on the next part about our macro habits. So those are the 6 things that we would want to fill our jar first. Healthy weight management, healthy eating and hydration, healthy motion, healthy sleep, healthy mind, and healthy surroundings. So each of those micro habits are going to, throughout this book, are going to be he's going to kind of break it down. And those will be like the elements that he's discussing. Kind of talks about how to use this life book. Really, it's designed to use daily so that you can kind of chronicle the next year of your life and be able to not only figure out the bumps in the road, but the things that work for you, the things that don't work, how you can make some of those changes. And then as the next little section is basically like he really wants you to be journaling, and how even just the fact that your own handwriting can have magic, he said. He did give a little short introduction about himself, but then he wants you to start filling in your own current reality. What's your current height, weight, your current health? Do you have any illnesses? Are you on medications? And then it really just breaks it down after that into the 3 components that he's talking about: our physical health, our mental health, and then our financial health. And kind of there's a short, I guess you could call this a survey to find out where you're at right now. So this kind of sets it up. So really, this first section, I didn't take a week to do this. Maybe I just more like probably 2 different times I sat down and started doing this. So really, you could take just a short time to get your current reality, figure out where you're at right now. And for me, I don't know how many people have done this, figured out your current reality, but my score wasn't where I wanted to be. And honestly, I thought, I've reached a healthy weight, but I still have a ways to go to this optimal health. I didn't feel like I could put 10s for everything. And so that was kind of an eye opener for me to realize I'm not at 10s. So I'm going to go through this and say, maybe I can go back in a year and be able to put 10s down, but because I couldn't put a 10 for anything really. And so that was really my takeaway, was just like a realization for myself that my current reality isn't exactly where I want to be, and that I do have some work. And so I'm excited to get going on this so that I can get those numbers higher than they are. Anyone else have some thoughts about their current reality?
We are literally hearing crickets from somewhere.
I know. I totally was thinking that. I was thinking to myself, I'm hearing crickets. I hope it's not just me.
That's so funny. That's where I read the before the part where you take the survey, the quiz, and figure out your. So I haven't done that yet, but I love that you said, you know what, this part doesn't take a long time to do. So if you haven't done it, like, it's going to be easy to catch up. This is a good week. If you're feeling like, oh no, I haven't started the reading yet and now I'm going to be behind, you're not. You can totally catch up. It's not too late. So I think that's awesome too. And I think it's needed because the next topic, or the next section, element 1, if I can talk, is being clear why you are here. And so that's the next one that we're going to be doing this coming week. And you have to know where you are to find that reason of wanting to change. And element 2 is knowing what you want to accomplish. And you have to fill out that survey. You have to know your current reality before you can really and truthfully, honestly, like, know the answers to why you want to do this and what you're moving toward, And so I think so that'll be good for me to go through. I haven't done that yet, the quiz. So, but that will be good. Did anybody else have things that any thoughts they want to share about that, even if you haven't read, but just like what you're looking forward to or anything?
My connection's really bad, but anyway, hopefully you can hear me. I just thought that was helpful for sure, because I'm behind. I was out of town on vacation all last week, so I haven't gotten to read anything, but I've just been looking through the Habit of Health book and the LifeBook as you guys have been talking, and kind of seeing an idea of the reading from this last week, and knowing that it's easy to kind of can just take a couple days to go through this intro part of the LifeBook and kind of catch up is good to know. And it's something that I don't think I actually finished in the Habits of Health, like the original book, was doing that survey or whatever. So I'm like, good, I need to finish that and really, and I'm obviously, my current reality now is different than it was back then. So it'll be interesting to see even where I am. So yeah.
But cool how, like what Karen said, you know, there's still room for improvement. Like whatever our current reality is, like, you know, it's like, yeah, we still have goals to set. We still have things to, you know, to work toward that we want to, especially when we see where we are and it kind of is eye-opening. Well, you know, we will have that clearer, you know, set of goals and motivation to keep going, you know, to keep working, and gives us that opportunity to step it up a little bit with our health, and just to continue with like following through, right? Like, sorry, I feel like there's this light coming from my windows that's like all weird on my screen, but yeah, well, I think this was awesome. It's been about a half hour. I'm excited to continue to do the reading in both Habits of Health 2.0 and your LifeBook. Real quick, what we're going to be doing in the Habits of Health book next is section 1.2 and 1.3. And then we'll just, so that's talking about the path, the creation of optimal health and well-being, and are you really ready to change? So those sections in continuing with part 1 of that book. And then in your life book, we'll do that next section, the element 1, where it's, let's see, where does it?
Page 36.
Yep, starting at page 36, being clear why you are here, element 1. So I think those will go together nicely. I'm excited to dive in and be ready for our next study group next Monday, same time, 7:30 a.m. Mountain Time. So
Awesome. Thanks, Alina. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Fun way to start Monday morning, seeing all your beautiful faces.
absolutely. Have a great week.
Okay, thanks.